What's up, everybody? The meta is in complete chaos, and as a result, it is forcing me out of retirement on YouTube to talk about all the shit that's going down. Now, I say chaos because a lot of people don't really know what's going on, and it has been very divisive in the community. Some players, viewers, and pros all really like it, and some fucking hate it. And I definitely am in the middle, more towards the side of people who really enjoy it. But I can easily see the other side. So before I get into the crux of this video, which is that the strategic diversity is much deeper now and much more enjoyable to watch, I want to extend an olive branch to the people in this side who don't like it. So first off, if you're an AD carry player, I get it. Like, your role got hit really, really hard to the point that it is no longer a necessity in the game, whereas before, you were always needed in League of Legends. So believe me, I get it. But it's not the end of the world. Last time I checked, AD carries are still the highest presence bot laner, even in this current meta. Now, there's not very many of them. It's mostly people who don't want to build crit and either use Ginsu's or some other Triforce build, Blade the Rune King type champions. There's no one really building crit in the bot lane. Games end too fast for that to matter anyways, on top of the fact that it all got nerfed. But I really believe Riot will probably try and buff those things up in the near future. So even if your favorite marksman is not viable right now, there are still ones in the meta that perform just fine. Now, there's also the fact that the game's really chaotic to a lot of people, and that I understand. I agree to an extent. Like, I think the strategic diversity and the things that you can actually pick is confusing people, but I also think people are not enjoying watching games over in 25 minutes where two skirmishes at 5-10 minutes into the game completely decide what's going to happen. And the snowballing in the game is way too strong. That is one that I definitely think needs to get toned down in a lot of ways. You can maybe look at the recent jungle changes that have forced this. You can look at the mid lane changes that have stalled or destroyed people's ability to stall. You can look at Rift Herald changes. You can look at AP buffs to turret damage. There's a lot of things that have resulted in this, and I think some of those should get a really hard look at and probably get reverted to allow games to go a little bit longer and slow this snowball down. There's also the fact that playing the game and watching the game aren't really the same thing. And while you maybe enjoy watching all the crazy stuff happening in pro play, you don't like playing with it in your own game. And so I think a lot of these are totally valid reasons to not be loving the meta right now. But I think the direction that they tried to take here is something I believe is awesome for the game, and we should hope to see more of, just hopefully with less problems that follow along with it. The idea that a lot of champions can be played in a lot of different places as opposed to strictly the lanes that they were designated to before is something I am very, very interested in. It's not something I want to see snowballs happen. I don't want to see marksmen dead, but I really like the direction the game is going, and I think it leads to a much deeper game overall. For a long time, the League of Legends meta has pretty much been the same thing. The fact that that's mold is getting broken after 7+ years, I am more than happy to see some of that stuff happen. I also think a lot of fans just aren't sure what the meta is right now, and it's not helping that a large number of analysts and experts like myself keep calling everything chaos and cheese and fiesta, and they're not helping the casual viewer get a grasp of what's going on. I think that's something that people like myself should do a better job at. So I'm going to try to do a little bit in this video by highlighting just how much interesting strategy is available in the game now by taking a look at a match that happened last night in the LCK. We're going to be looking at Game 3 between Kingzone and Gen G. In the first rotations of the draft, we see that Kingzone has locked in Karthus, Graves, and Mordekaiser. We've seen a lot of Mordekaiser mids that combo with some kind of hard farming jungler like Shyvana, and then they go run around the map with this kind of priority, get that guy really fed. Mordekaiser manages to stay higher level and is able to still contribute while doing this. It's interesting with Karthus because he also has a combination with another jungler in Nunu, where those guys do a very similar strategy but funnel all the gold onto the Karthus. And so with both Karthus and Graves and Mordekaiser locked in, you're not really sure which of these strategies they're going with, as well as the fact that in the series, Prey, the AD carry player, or marksman, bot lane, or whatever you want to call him, had been the one taking Mordekaiser. So you're not even sure the Mordekaiser is going mid, maybe the Karthus is going mid with the Graves, and maybe it's just that. And so on the side of Gen G, you're really not sure what's going on. The one thing you do know is they have a lot of magic damage, so when they lock in their GP pick, they're actually going to end up banning out a lot of champions that would counter him in the top side using AD. And this allows the Vladimir pick to come in for the side of Kingzone, and then they rounded out with their Alistar. And it looks like, you know, they're going for those kind of relatively standard lanes that I was talking about before, with the Mordekaiser and the Alistar in the bot lane. The Vladimir GP matchup is one that we saw all the time in spring, and it's one that heavily favors Vladimir, where he's usually able to get huge advantages on the GP and sometimes even solo kill him. The last pick, Aurelion Sol, is a very strong champion in this meta for two reasons. One, with all the wave clear nerfs that have come in for a lot of these mages in the mid lane, he's basically the only one available who can still shove out the wave very aggressively early on and then roam around the map. You factor that in against this hard farming style that we talked about, and he's able to often directly counter that by pairing up with an aggressive jungler on his own side. They get the push priority in the mid lane, and then they're able to go and aggressively attack things like that Yi or Shyvana or whatever might be hard farming. Some people might think that because Karthus has this global ultimate, he can counter this Aurelion Sol, but the problem is that Aurelion Sol starts affecting the map basically from level 3, and Karthus won't have that ult until level 6, so it's not really a counter in any way unless nothing happens in the top side until that point, and somehow Aurelion Sol doesn't get up there. So what Kingzone does, knowing this, is they actually put their Alistar and Mordekaiser in the mid lane to sit on top of this Aurelion Sol so he can not influence that topside matchup, therefore allowing the Vladimir to try and snowball. Now, this is also a really good strategy because Karthus, people might not remember, is a pretty good 1v2 champion, all things considered. He has immense range so he can farm safely, and he has the ability to harass anyone who doesn't have the tools to properly zone him out. So even in this video, you see Tahm Kench take an unsafe path and get really heavily chunked out. He's also pretty difficult to dive because he has his passive, which even if he does die, is able to continue chunking people out and maybe kill them under the turret, or at least collect the wave that you tried to deny from him when you dove him, as well as the fact that he'll take TP and come back to the wave. All this stuff makes it so that Karthus in a 1v2 will usually be okay. It feels like Gen G is aware of the pickle that they've been put in, and they decide to put the Aurelion Sol down to the bot lane to match up against the Karthus and put their bot lane into the mid lane to match the Mordekaiser and Alistar. But even this is still working in Kingzone's favor because Aurelion Sol can no longer roam up to the top side to influence that Vladimir and GP matchup. And therefore, if they wait till 6, they will have the global advantage to try and snowball through the top lane. Kind of unfortunately, instead of playing it slow, waiting for those level 6s for this amazing combination to really work out, they go ahead and try and dive at 3 minutes in the game at level 2s and level 3s. Doesn't really work out. Enemy team collapses. They give up 5 kills and the game's over instantly. Anytime a team gets aced in 3.5 minutes, I understand that maybe the game should be over, but I do agree with fans that it would be nice to not necessarily see that the game is completely over at this point. But either way, the fact that so much had happened in the first 3.5 minutes of the game to talk about is fantastic and something I would love to see more of, as compared to when you just get standard lanes and more standard champions. And there's a chance that this meta also standardizes. I mean, the fact that Vladimir is a flex pick that fits into all 3 lanes is pretty much already known that he's one of the highest priority champions on the patch. And this kind of stuff will happen, but the fact that you have so many options with that champion is still something I love to see. So hopefully, as you can tell with this video, there is a ton of stuff to talk about with this new meta. I really do hope that Riot goes and swings the pendulum back a little bit for AD carries and the snowballing while being able to maintain some of the strategic diversity that was displayed in this video. Now, I kind of mentioned that I don't think a lot of people are doing a good job really digging into stuff like this, and it's something that I will hopefully be continuing to do over the course of the season, that as we see crazy ass shit happen, your boy will be here to break it down for you and hopefully make you guys understand that it's not all chaos, it's not all fiesta. There is really sound strategic planning going into not only the drafts, but what's happening in game. Now that said, of course, I am a North American analyst, and so I would be remiss to not comment on this meta's influence on the North American LCS. So I'll be having another video coming out today to discuss what I think will happen with some of the teams in this new meta. It'll be extremely speculative, very useless, but hopefully very entertaining. Nope, still super echoey. All right, well, apparently my new room arrangement's super echoey. Less clothes on the ground to absorb all the sound. Anyways, so